I'm a dumbass, guys. No, start off by saying that. This is the third time I'm now starting this, but I really liked the way the light was coming through this tree here with, like, you know, the fall foliage at the bottom. And I just had to share it, of course, because look at how gorgeous that is. That is, I don't think my phone camera can possibly do it justice, but it is just amazing. It's like the little things like this that just, you know, help you stay positive and realize that there's, like, you know, the world maybe is, like, inherently good. It's what you make of it. So, because I can be a really negative person, just kind of by default, just like sad, not like, you know, let's go say vindictive or evil or anything. Look at that nice little bench there. Oh, I need to come up here and take pictures. Oh, I need to come up here and take pictures. I'll have to get my tripod and stuff. And of course I have to, you know, dress up. I can't just, you know, be here in jeans and Nikes and a pink hoodie. As cute as the pink hoodie happens to be. Yeah. I'm about to look like a huge creeper though, guys, so I went to, well, my first year of high school, I went to a school that's actually just a couple blocks from here. And it was like a small alternative school for, like, you know, artsy kids. It didn't fit in at like a regular setting. I got kicked out, but I was there for the majority of my freshman year. So since this was nearby, kids used to come down here like during the lunch hours and, like, you know, be up to no good, or what was considered up to no good back then, which is pretty accepted now, but, you know, whatever. But yeah, so figured I was, well, oh, maybe I won't look like a creeper. Okay, good. Look outside, because, like, I've noticed today that, you know, like, the goth kids still do hang out here, and I ran into a group of them, and I'm like, oh, I don't know if they're, like, trying to film a TikTok or something. I think that's what I just witnessed, but, I was like, what is going on? Then again, I shouldn't be, you know, here I am, I'm, like, you know, the adult, and, you know, maybe, I think, here, I'll say it, I think adults are just salty that they can't dress like that anymore, and I know I am. You know, I go into Hot Topic, and I'm like, I don't even know what any of this is anymore. And it makes me mad. I'm like, wow, I'm really that old. Okay. And then you kind of get bitter about it because you're like, at least I do. I don't know. I think everybody does. Yeah. So it's gorgeous here today. It's like pretty decent temperature. My only complaint on my walk today is that I wore pants that are a little bit too big and they keep, like, sliding down. I know, TMI, who cares? You know, not in, like, a weird way. Well, kind of, I guess. I don't know. I don't know if there's a way for that not to be a weird way. But yeah, so I am on here doing my walk and talks because for those of you who like to email or comment and say, wow, this is boring, nobody cares. Well, that's cool. I don't care if you care. I'm still going to do it anyways. And if you don't like it, you can go kick rocks. Okay. You know, now that that's out of the way, you know, I'm not everyone's cup of tea. Can't make everyone happy. And if you don't like it, don't look at it. And quite frankly, what people need to understand about things like views and analytics is what is behind it. Like, people just automatically think that, you know, you get a lot of views, it means people like you, and it means that you're, like, the greatest or better than, no. It has nothing to do with that. I mean, there's like a whole method to the madness, and the algorithm is a constantly changing thing. So, you know, putting out content consistently really helps, which I don't do. So, of course, my videos, there's a whole science behind it. So, I mean, you can continue on with that narrative of it's because people don't like me or nobody cares. You can continue with that. But I'm not going to take it to heart because I know it's not relevant. I know people like me. More people like me than I even knew. Let me tell you, I was surprised. I think people underestimate me a lot, and they underestimate, I don't know, like, a lot about me. But, well, I could say a lot about that, but that's not really what I wanted to come on here and talk about today. I actually wanted to do something kind of positive today. Because, people like Natasha are always like, oh, what do you put out that's so positive into the community? Well, Natasha, why don't you have a seat? Well, I'm sorry, you're already sitting, so remain seated, okay, for the duration of my spiel here. But I was doing some thinking today, and I was kind of like in my head just kind of analyzing stuff about life and how I've gotten to where I am, and just trying to figure out, like, just, pondering things, because I'm always thinking. It's a problem. Like, what I wouldn't give to just shut my brain off. I would love that. Just for a little bit. But sometimes it's like positive stuff. So I was thinking to myself, like, a lot of the time, a lot of people, like, you never know what somebody's going through, and you never know, like, what their story is. And a lot of times, and I'm just thinking this for myself, so people are gonna be like, why does this matter, B? And it doesn't. It's just what I was thinking about. For a lot of people, they go through stuff in their life that, maybe it's, we tend to, as human beings, think of certain events as being like, cookie cutter trauma. And people always recognize that as something that would be traumatic to somebody. There's those major things, and we can all think of what they are. I'm not going to mention them, so trigger warning going forward, because I might accidentally say it, but I'm going to try not to. But, there are those things that if somebody goes to you and says, hey, this happened to me, you're automatically going to be like, oh my God. Like, and you'll get it, right? But then what often gets overlooked, and I was thinking about what somebody had said to me at one point that I really used as a learning experience for myself, because I was quite ignorant to it before as well. So the one phrase that I'm going to use for it, and I know it sounds wrong, like, because it almost sounds like, one group is weak and the other, that's not what I'm trying to imply though. So, what's normal to the spider is chaos to the fly, or it's something like that. So there are people out there where the worst thing that's ever happened to them is they failed out of college or something, something that somebody else might see as stupid, right? They'd be like, well, that's not traumatizing. How is that traumatizing? But for them, that still evoked the same mental effect as something that, we would all recognize as traumatic would. And I always, I've been through a lot of stuff in my life, like a lot of trauma. And, some of it is like, those big ones that you mentioned, and everyone's like, oh yeah, that, there it is. But, I made the mistake of once, and I've been open about stuff that, let's just put it this way, I've done a lot of, like, working on myself. And there was one that I was doing in a group, and I was in a terrible mood, and a gentleman was talking about how that affected him. I think it was something like that. It was something like failing out of college. But, like, the way he was responding to it, you would have thought that, like, he had just tragically lost a family member or something. But to him, that's how it felt, right? And who am I to judge? So how it was explained to me, though, is that it still activates the same like response from your brain. And that doesn't mean that, but what happens though to those people, and I feel like it's even worse in a way, because a lot of these people fear that judgment, like I just said to you, fear judgment from people like myself who look at things that way. So they've gone up through life and they've had these events that have truly scarred them, but it's something that people would probably say, but that's not a big deal, suck it up. But to them, it's just as impactful in their life and their functioning as something that's recognized as trauma. Hopefully that makes sense. And those people, they hold on to it. They don't talk about it. They keep it to themselves. And they don't say anything because they don't feel that it's something that they need to. Or they think people will think it's stupid or laugh or, tell them that they're overreacting or, I don't know, being dramatic. Hold on. So those people never really resolve that within themselves or process it because they don't allow it. They don't recognize it as something that's truly impacting their quality of life, and it eats at you. And I don't know. I honestly don't even know what I was thinking about that today. But it came up, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to say something about that, because if I can tell one person that, that what they went through matters, and that that the reason that something that might seem like that maybe they felt that they had just made a big deal about, or they weren't sure why it affects them in such a impactful way, well, it's because it affects their brain the same way for you. That was traumatic for you. It's the same thing. It doesn't have to be one of those huge things that everybody recognizes as it to impact you. And my hope for people is that maybe they could explain it to somebody that way and talk about it, or because it's not something that's easy to hold on to. Trauma is something that needs to be worked through, and the first part of working through it is acknowledging it. But if you think that you don't even recognize it as something that's trauma, how are you going to overcome it, right? And that's why a lot of people turn to self-medication or just not being miserable, when really and like I said, just say that doesn't mean that somebody else is over it. That's not it, guys. Some people are just very fortunate that they've never had to go through those huge impactful things, but the things they have gone through still register in your brain the same way. So to them, that impacts them just as much. And then you have people like me who make them feel like they'll never talk about it. And mental health in this country is something that's fairly new to be normalized. So older generations, a lot of people fear talking to their family about it because they feel that their family will just be like, well, stop being dramatic, just suck it up. It could be worse. When that isn't helpful at all, that just kind of reinforces that person's thought of, well, there's something wrong with me. When really there's nothing wrong. It's the same thing with your brain as somebody who, and you never know what's going to impact you that way. I want to make that clear too. Sometimes your brain registers things as traumatic and you can't even explain why. I have, I'll be open about it. I mean, if people want to hold it against me, whatever, but I have PTSD from several things. And for me, there are things that will trigger it, and I don't even know why. And I don't, it could be out of nowhere. And actually it happened to me the other day, and it scared the crap out of someone. Because all of a sudden I was fine. Everything was fine. I was in the kitchen, everything was fine. And something hit me, and I literally like I just couldn't. I started like hyperventilating, and I'm like, I can't do it. And I like dropped it was bad. And I have no idea what triggered it. It's so weird. But I don't know if that's my positivity I want to put out into the world today, is that, you know, if something like that you think is stupid is impacting you like that, then it's trauma and it needs to be worked through. And don't let anybody tell you that it doesn't matter, or that you're less than because something that they think is stupid impacted you. Like, there are some people where, you know, they could lose a loved one and it doesn't impact them the way it impacts other people. There's no rhyme or reason. I mean, and to be honest, I don't even think it really has anything to do with you know, how close you are. I mean, I've met all types of people that react to things differently. I mean, it really just depends. Yeah. So, I don't know. I think I was thinking about a lot of that yesterday after walking by, you know, that grave that I showed you guys. And, you know, I think that brought up in my head the thinking of, you know, that stigma of, you know, well, I also was going through some clips, and I was listening to the one where Natasha said that, you know, addiction would never touch her family. Oh no, never her family. And that she's not a bad mother, so she would never. That would never be. She would just never be that weak. And yet her kids would never be that weak because she's a good family. Well, can I let you guys in on something? And I think it's okay because it's like public knowledge. Like, it's in the newspaper and stuff, so I don't think it's an issue. I might be vague about it just because, but so the grave I showed you yesterday, right? So that's an accidental overdose, okay? And if you knew whose son that was, I think you'd rethink that statement as to it only is people from bad families. You definitely rethink that, because this is somebody who comes from a very well-known, very wealthy family. It has no demographic, guys. Like, none. I'm proof of that. You know, then I feel like there's people that will be like, well, you know, for children who have trauma growing up. I also heard somebody in the chat say that, like, it's your parents' job to protect your child from trauma. Well, here's the thing, guys. My parents love me to death. They always have. I mean, I was kind of brought into their life at a disadvantage with trauma already. So, first of all, there's that. But also, you can't always protect your children from everything. As much as you want to. Let's be honest. Sometimes bad shit happens. And there's nothing you can do about it. I mean, I'll use an example from my personal life, right? You know, it's, you know, you want to protect people, but, you know, when you get, a loved one gets that call that their dad just died, out of the blue, suddenly, that's traumatic, and you can't protect them from that. There's nothing I could do about it. You know, that's the kind of thing that you can't protect them from, no matter what. Sometimes bad stuff happens. So for Natasha to assume that people who fight those battles are bad parents, they're, you know. So, I mean, I just want her to, just to get things clear, that's what she's saying to her audience, right? So she's saying that the parents in her audience that have children who have struggled with substance abuse, that they're bad parents, right? Because that's pretty much what she said. She certainly said that about Granny's Watching, which I did not agree with. And now, guys, this is like months ago, but like, I mentioned it before then. I mean, that was one of the more messed up things I've heard her say. But it triggered me because, like, let me tell you, nothing is gonna upset me more than to hear that, because my parents are wonderful people. Some of you know who they are, like, you know. They did everything in their power to keep me safe and to help me, and sometimes it's out of your control, and it's heartbreaking. And I know that there are, you know, a lot of people in our community that have lost a loved one or a child, and, you know, to addiction. And, you know, I just feel like that's a really cold and callous thing to say. It doesn't sit right with me. I'm not okay with it. It has nothing to do with being like a good parent. And then to say that people that have struggled with that aren't, you know, good parents. Well, let me rephrase that. For folks that struggle with that, right, and they keep their kids, they don't allow anybody else to be involved, and, you know, they are, you know, in very active addiction and putting their children in very bad situations, like that to me is a bad parent. Yes, yeah, absolutely, there's no denying that. But to say that somebody but I think that's more, I'm not going to say somebody is a bad parent, I'm going to say that's bad parenting, because nobody's beyond redemption, in my opinion. You know, a lot of people, and I've heard many stories, I've told my story, I mean, I've certainly told my story, you know. It takes a strong person to admit that they can't do it right now. And whether that's making a plan that's like a permanent plan, you know, for your child to go be raised by, you know, for adoption, whether it's that or whether it's a family member taking the child while you go and get help. What matters, though, what makes a good parent is recognizing that you need to be a parent and getting clean and staying clean. Well, I mean, but we do have to acknowledge that, you know, relapse can be part of recovery. So I don't throw shade at that much either. Anybody who's gone through this, they know what I'm talking about. They know that I'm not saying that it's, I think you guys get it, but, like, you know, if there are children that are not safe and they are in danger, then no, that is not being a good parent. And it's complicated. It's a complicated situation, because, like, when you're impaired, like, sometimes you don't even realize that stuff's going on, and you don't see it. So yeah, you know, it's a tough situation, but I really, like I said, some of the strongest people I know are recovering addicts. Some of the strongest people I know are parents of recovering addicts, or, quite frankly, anybody who struggled with addiction. Being a parent of somebody that has that struggle is a nightmare. It just is. So, yeah. So, I mean, it takes a strong person to be able to get through that. And it takes a very strong person to do, like, the whole tough love thing. You know, nobody wants their child to hate them. Nobody wants their child, but what they need to realize is that it's not really their child speaking to them. It's like the drugs. It's like, you know, they're going to tell you that you're the worst person in the world, not because you're not going to give them money to get rent, because that's not what the money's for. You know what I mean? I don't need to explain it, but, like, I was just thinking about all this today, because I think a lot. And that was kind of one of the things I was mulling over in my head that I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about, because I don't know, I don't like the shaming of certain things here. I just don't. And especially from the likes of Natasha, I mean, that's such an ignorant way to think. You know, I truly hope with all my heart that she never has to experience something like that, but to say that she's immune to that, to say that no one in her family would ever, that's just not true. That's not true. It's not true. It has nothing to do with what kind of family you come from. It has nothing to do with anything like that. It happens to just about anyone. Every time I've been to rehab or detox or like the outpatient stuff that I've done, which I mean I haven't had to do that. I mean that was a long time ago. So I mean I haven't done it recently, but I feel like nowadays it's even more the way what I'm about to say, just because of the prescription pill issues. It has just gotten worse, but so my thoughts are it's probably even more like you'd be surprised at the people that show up in that room every day. You'd be surprised. I know I was. But I wanted to show you that one in particular because actually, you know what, I will tell you guys. I will. You can Google idiot too, but it's so I'm sure you guys have heard of the toy company Hasbro, right? I'm sure you have. They pretty much make a lot of kids' toys and stuff. And their headquarters is in my state. And the kid whose grave I showed you, his father, who was buried next to him, was like the CEO of Hasbro. I think that if that's not the correct term, he's like the high up though. Like he is in charge of everything, or was before he passed away. So that's somebody who's very well off family, Jewish family. So, and I mean I know that probably doesn't mean much to anybody who's not here, but that's windy. But like where I was raised, and I was raised here in the Jewish community here in New England, in the east side of Providence, and let me tell you, like, if I had known that kind of stuff affected other people, I think I wouldn't have had as much shame as I have my whole life. But it's all about keeping up appearances, and I had no idea that some people struggle with that, and it doesn't have any demographic. Yeah. All of my classmates from when I was in private school, I switched to public school when I was getting bullied really badly at the very end of 4th grade. And then I went to public school from 4th grade to 8th grade. And then I was at private school since then. But, I mean, the people I grew up around are all like, successful doctors, lawyers, politicians, like CEOs of startup companies, like, you name it. And it's like when you go to like family get-togethers and stuff, and everyone's talking about, oh, what are you up to? What have you been doing? It's like once they get to me, it's like I don't even want to go because it's like, what do you even say? A lot of people are like, but Emma, you're so successful, and I know I am. I've been quite successful in my career that I've been pursuing, but it almost feels like it's not enough. I mean, I guess my claim to fame is, I think I also want to make this clear too, because I feel like maybe I wasn't clear about it. When I talk about like experiences that I've been through with people on social media, I'm not always talking about YouTube. What people seem to forget is that I was on Instagram before this, and I had a very, very, very large following. Hold on. I had 129,000 followers before I got kind of technically, I guess, canceled. But like I've told that story before. I guess I don't think canceled. I don't know. And let's just say this. So the person who was behind that, remember the person I told you that the reason he helped me start it up. He was helping me do everything for a little bit, and then he decided that it kind of went to his head, and he decided he was too good, and like he didn't appreciate the fact that I wasn't interested in a romantic way, which I thought we were cool with, but turns out we weren't. And it wasn't like because of, now it is. I know who he is, but like, I think it was more for me. It was that we were in two different places. The dude's 10 years younger than me, like. So he was helping me with all like the technological stuff that I didn't know how to do at the time, and I made it big real quick. And he was there at the beginning, and then he kind of disappeared because he thought it was stupid. But then once I got successful, then he came creeping back, and of course I took him back. And then I found out that he was using, because what I was, it wasn't through my name, like it was behind a brand. So, nobody knew who I was. So he was using the account, right? Because he had the password, because I had admins, because I couldn't possibly keep up with it otherwise. I had to hire 4 people. And I had it in 3 different languages as well. So, and across, it was like an omni-channel experience. I put a lot of work into it. Let me tell you, when I woke up and that was gone, because I could never do that again. I don't know how I did it, but I could never do it again. But I haven't tried, so maybe I could. And I wish I could, because like I said, now it looks like on Instagram, you can have paid subscriptions. So if I had paid oh my God, guys, I can't even tell you like how much money I would have made doing it. But that feature wasn't there then. And I think maybe it's kind of good that I didn't. Because I think that would have potentially opened me up for, well, no, doesn't. But I want to make something clear, guys. Just because a band says it's okay to do something does not mean it's okay, right? If their label doesn't want you using it, then it doesn't matter what the band says. So that's all I'm going to put with that. But because technically the band works for them, even though the band's the famous ones, right? Like it's quite funny. It's quite funny. But yeah, so I mean, this guy was using the account to talk to underage girls. Well, girls in general, but then I found out that some of them were underage and did tell him that. Because I had people dealing with the DMs, because I just did not have time to do it. And one day, one of the women who worked for me was like, you might want to like check this out, like, because I don't know who's sending it, because obviously it's not from his account, it's from the brand, like the Instagram, that account. And she's like, I don't know who's sending it, but because I had a couple of people that had access to it. But yeah, you're gonna want to see this. And I changed the password because I mean, I knew his writing style, so I'm like, it has to be him. He's the only guy too, so I mean, and to my knowledge, none of the women who worked for me were like gay or bisexual, so it kind of, power of deduction. So I changed the password, and he got mad that I changed the password. So, I mean, obviously everything that you do, you're going to have haters. Like, there were people that were really mad that they were doing the same thing that I was doing, but I came in out of nowhere and blew up, and they hadn't done that in the years that they've been on there. So people do get upset about that, certain types of people. There are people that are just happy for other people. I like to think that I'm one of them. I can get salty, but my reasons for being salty is not because someone else is successful. No. I would have been happy if they, blew up overnight. It didn't make a difference to me. When at the end of the day, I was on the payroll, they weren't. So, but like I said, this is a band I had to sign an NDA for, and when I asked why I had to sign the NDA, their answer to me was for my own safety, and I was like, excuse me? But it does turn out this fan base is very, the music that this is appeals to some pretty crazy people. Yeah, so I saw why afterwards. But yeah, and I think I told you guys, I'm hoping to get back on that. I mean, I was really disappointed to not be back on for it this year. I was hoping I did, but I didn't put myself out there very much. So, I didn't pursue it. So you can't just expect things to be handed to you without working for it, and that was my fault. But next time. And then part of me it ruins it for you in a way, guys, because when you start up something, that you have creative freedom, you make the decisions, right? But once you sign that, once you onboard onto the actual official team, you sign away any creative freedom that you have, all of it. It's gone. Suddenly there are rules about what you can and can't post and when you can post, and they tell you what to post. So the fun of making videos and stuff, it's gone because you can't do it. Everything has to go through several people to be posted, and any misstep is a problem. And to be fair, guys, I hate to say I told you so. I hate to say I told you so, but like, if they had just done what I told them to, I think that they would have had a better turnout. But that's besides the point. Shh, I hope they don't. Although they probably will, because guys, and the reason I've been bringing it up a lot lately. So that was my biggest feud. So this guy, he and I have gone back and forth on social media in general for a while, and you know, I tried ignoring it, but yeah. So I was stupid, and this is somebody I've met in real life. You know, this is somebody who knows me very, very well, and I stupidly accepted his follow request on Instagram not too long ago. And I didn't think anything of it. It's been a couple of years. I'm like, okay, well, maybe, like, you know, I'm all for talking it out. Like, I don't really want to be enemies with anybody. I'm not that salty anymore. Oh, I am a little, but like, I'm not gonna, like, you know, be a douchebag about it. But like, I stupidly posted something about my YouTube channel that gave like information as to like what my channel name is and stuff, because otherwise nobody's gonna find it. And you know, lo and behold, he's been popping up around chats. So a lot. I do refer to that quite a bit. Yeah. So I'm not really sure what interest he has in this community besides me. I don't think he's a true crime guy. Really don't think anything about this community would interest him in any way, shape, or form, but you know, if it's to make my life miserable, then sign him up. So a lot of people out today. But I mean, because I've been racking my brain trying to think of like, what have I been saying that could possibly be being construed in certain ways, right? And you know, I'm not going to say that I don't, you know, throw passive aggressive jabs once in a while, because I do. I think we all do. I'm not going to say I never do it. But if you're taking it at being about you, I mean, what does that say? I'm just saying. Like, if I don't think something's directed at me, then I'm not going to register it in my brain as that. If that's not what I'm thinking about myself. Like, if I know I did something to somebody and they say it without saying a name, you know what I mean? I'm just using that as hypothetical here, not throwing. Like I said, I own if I've done it before. But I've been trying to think of like what people have gotten twisted, because like, I've gotten some messages that I'm just confused by, because I don't know when these things happened. But then I was thinking to myself, I'm like, I have been throwing some passive aggressive jabs at him because I didn't really want to go into my history with him here, but I know he's listening. So I was thinking maybe some of those would be, but I didn't think it was anything that would be like offensive. I don't know. But if I'm talking about being screwed over on social media, chances are it's probably about him. But there are a few people on here that have. So if you're one of them, then why shouldn't I say it? Why shouldn't I? If you've actually done that, then I mean, that's what I don't understand about YouTube. I don't get it. Like, if I do something to somebody else, I'm not going to act shocked and offended when I get called out. You know? I mean, I really, you guys know what I'm saying. It's like, okay, but like, but didn't you do that? Like, but you did screw me over. So, what's the issue with me saying so? But I mean, I just feel like a lot of things are just these huge walking contradictions, and a lot of projection around here, and a lot of nonsense, a lot of people that just don't like themselves, and because they don't like themselves, YouTube becomes their only source of validation and self-worth. Those are the people that are, buying subs. Which, guys, have you noticed that Natasha's numbers don't go up the way they were way back when? She's been sitting pretty so right now her analytics show like organic growth, like legit. What her numbers are portraying now, those are legit. Back during the summer though, they weren't. And here's the thing, she stopped buying subs. For her, it's all about appearances. And once you get, and I know why people do it. Here's the thing. And now that they've made it so you can't hide your sub count, it's made it even more prevalent. So they've done studies, guys. So if you put in a keyword right into the search, and you get a bunch of videos that come up, right? And let's say one video has like 700 views, and another one has like 700,000 views rather. Which video are you going to click on? Probably the one that looks like more people enjoyed it, right? Right. At least I do. And that's what the study showed. It also showed that people that have more subscribers are considered like more legitimate in terms of what the facts they're putting out are, which is actually quite scary, if I'm honest, because that in no way like validates anything anybody says. So people are more likely to go to their channels. So for her and for businesses, and this is how these companies that sell subs and views, they'll market it to you as like basically it's their oh Jesus Christ, what is that? Declaration of value? No. Yes, something like that. Basically, what it is a statement that a brand or a company will make, telling you like why it benefits the customer, like why you should choose that brand over something else, and how it solves your issue, your problem. And it has to be like clear cut and definitive. I'm terrible at writing them. Brevity is not my strong suit. Like I am so bad at it. And I have to do it for my job. Like I'm so bad at it. But it's like I just go on and on and on. It's like no, it really just needs to be very concise, or you're gonna lose people. But yeah, that's how they're going to market it to you. They're going to say, well, you want to be taken seriously? Well, sometimes it's hit or miss, Sometimes channels that do everything right never make it because the algorithm is what the algorithm is. Sometimes it's sheer luck. And a lot of people, if you're a brand and you're trying to sell something, you don't want to go through the process of having to build that, right? No. And I can see it used in that context, but when it comes to like your individual YouTube page, it's sad. It's sad. But if you're a business, whatever, I think it's a little different context, but that's what it is. So what Natasha was trying to do is make herself feel like she was more important and legitimate, and it's more to show other people so they get that validation back in return. And those tend to be very empty people who are just very miserable in their lives and have nothing else but the internet to validate them and tell them that they're good people, because the reality is that they're not really sure if they are. Yeah, so she can come at people's everything all she wants. She can say she's such a great parent. She can say that, but I mean that's all. That's all like, oh my God, I'm like losing words in my head. I don't know what's going on. That is subjective. What one person thinks is appropriate parenting might not be what other. She talks about hitting children all the time. She's like, I would have beaten them more. I'm like, really? Like, that's not my parenting style. I'd never hit my child. I just wouldn't. But I know that apparently there are people that do. Because it's literally what she says. She says that like my generation wasn't beat enough as children or something. And what people in this world need to get right though is that it's not the millennials they're mad at. It's not us. Us millennials, we're just as miserable as you are. It's the Gen Z that you're like directing these things like the snowflake thing to. It ain't us. So yeah. Like, I'm an 80s baby. I'm a millennial, though. So, yeah, but it pissed me off. I never heard that clip. And what she said, I mean, about grannies watching was just, I saw red. Like, how dare you? How dare you? And it kind of just sparked me thinking about, like, what message that communicates to her subscribers, who I'm sure many of them have children who have substance abuse issues. And you're saying that they're... What? Because, like, not only did she, like, basically, I'll say it, like, she was talking about not only Granny's watching and her children, but she was talking about Granny's watching's parents as well. And that. So I'm like, well, you know what you're communicating here, right? It made me angry. So I'm like, I'm going to come on here. I'm going to talk about it a little bit. Because I don't think that's fair. I just don't. Like I said, no child should ever be unsafe. And if there's harm actually being done, then yes, that's bad parenting. Sorry. It just is, in my opinion. But I'm not the judge, right? So, like, it's not my business. Not that it's not my business, because I don't know if any of you, like, I was in Queen Bee's chat a couple days ago, and I mentioned something that happened on my street not that long, it was probably about a year ago, where a child died. Because the house, it was an apartment. It was way down, like, for me, like, I live on a really long street, so, like, to say you live on my street could say you live, like, really, like, just a really wide range. And, like, there's the nice part of my street, and then there's, like, the not. Like, there's the part of my street that's in a really nice neighborhood, and then there's the part of my street that's not. And I'm right at the middle. Like, I'm right at the cusp. Of, like, one side of it's nice and the other side is bad. But so there was, a woman, her children, and her boyfriend. I'm not sure if he was the father or not, but they were manufacturing fentanyl and stuff like that. So basically the child got into it and died, and they tried to cover it up in a really... It was bad. I don't want to go into details because I don't want to trigger anybody, but it was really bad. So I was saying that, like, there were people that, are those hawks? Yes, those are osprey. Look at that, guys. Do you guys see that? I caught that on film. Look, there's two of them. Oh no, it's trying to eat it. Oh my God, guys. I think it was trying to eat that bird. Oh my God, I've never gotten that on film before. Yes. See? Okay. But, and I'll be, yeah. So basically what I'm trying to say is that I'm not going to say it's not my business, because I do know. I was speaking to one of my neighbors, and she had called about this family before. Because we were all shocked. I mean, that place was, like, condemned afterwards. Like, they just rented it out to somebody again. They had to gut the entire thing, and there were people wearing hazmat suits. Now, I'm not familiar with how that kind of stuff is made, so I'm not sure, like, what was going on to the point where, like, it had to be like that. But basically nobody reported that the child was not... It was bad. Apparently, they were there for quite some time, and it was bad. I really don't want to go into details. It makes me very angry. And they had other children too. So thank God those other children were hopefully in loving homes at this point. I can only pray that, because let's be honest, the system isn't always the best place for a child either. That can be damaging too. So it's just a shitty world we live in. But, you can only do your part and pray, I guess, if that's something that you believe in. To have, higher power or God watch over those who need it. But, so, yeah, so she had told me that, and then I thought to myself, at first I was like, I don't know. I used to be a mandated reporter for a couple of my jobs that I've had back when I was out of college. They were jobs I had absolutely no business having. None. Should not have had them. But, it's what I thought I wanted to do. It's what I'd gone to school for, and, it's the industry that my dad is a very well-known name, so I got hired. And a lot of it just added so much trauma. Let me tell you guys, working with kids, takes a very special person to be able to do that long term. It destroyed me. It destroyed me. I have very severe trauma over that job in particular, but essentially I was put in charge of deciding whether a child could go, whether a home was safe for a child or it wasn't, and I had no business making that decision. I had no idea what I was doing. No idea. So, I don't really want to go into that. That is one thing I just try to block out of my mind, is that entire 4-year period. That was me at my worst too. Like, it was bad. Like, I struggled with things, but I was always functional. I always had a job. And you know, to those who were around me at the time, I mean, maybe they'd say otherwise. Maybe they'd say that I wasn't functional. I mean, it was at a point where I probably wouldn't be very soon though. Because it's not like sustainable, but at least from where I was sitting and how I thought, which, you know, take it with a grain of salt, because it probably wasn't how things actually were, but, you know, it wasn't like I was ever not working or, and I had a professional job, guys, so that's what I'm saying. Like, you never know. You really can't put, like, a face or a name onto certain struggles. You just can't do it. Now, granted, I mean, yeah, it's just, I didn't like that Natasha had said that, but, like, yeah. I mean, a lot of people are like, you know, I always say, CPS, that should never be called on anybody, especially on YouTube, guys, because 9 times out of 10, it's not done for a good reason. You know, it's not, or else you are literally sitting there and there's a live going on and you see something horrible happen, like, you know, on video with your own eyes. And even then, I'd urge people to think of whether they're doing it for the right reasons or not. Like, if you genuinely care and you call because you feel that it's something you need to do, I'm, you know, I have more respect for that, I guess. But, like, if you're doing it because you don't like a YouTube creator, or, well, really, that's the reason, or you have personal feelings about, you know, that I don't have respect for. That's not doing something because you actually give a shit. That's what I feel about all these true crime things. You think these people actually care about the cases? No. Nobody, it's like nobody cares about these people before this stuff happens, and everyone's always like, oh, it's such a tragedy. It's so terrible. And sometimes things are just that, a tragedy. And sometimes, like I said, some trauma, it just can't be avoided. Sometimes bad things just happen. That's true. But, hold on. It's a lot over here, guys. But, you know, I guess it's like, if there's no money to be made in helping, then, quote unquote, helping, then they're not going to do it. And I mean, and I have to see it from both sides. So, you know, I'm not going to just take one stance on it. I understand the whole notion of supply and demand. I understand the notion of, you know, this is what subscribers want to talk about. This is what gets me money. I'm looking to make money. Therefore, this is what I'm going to continue doing. And if that's you, then great. But just like you can do that, I can judge you for doing it. Like, I can judge your character. It doesn't mean you can't tell me I'm a bad person for thinking differently of you if that's what you choose to do with something like true crime, in a way that's not respectful. If you're talking about it in a way that's respectful, if you're talking about it in a way that's factual, if you're talking about it in a way that is not going blatantly against a family's wishes, then fine, have at it. But my preference would be if people would wait. If something is that fresh with a family, and these, especially something that involves, kids who spend a lot of their time online. Like any of us who have kids, like they're glued to their phones, right? And with the algorithm the way it is, this shit's gonna come up in their feeds. And I know there are people who are like, they're guilty, so they deserve it. Well, dude, how do you know that? Do you know that? What if they aren't? That's trauma, like what I was talking about earlier. This is traumatic, and it's just adding to it. And it makes me afraid for these children, honest to God, because I know how that stuff feels. Not like literally, but you know what I mean. Hold on. Why is it doing this? I didn't even realize I had been on here this long rambling. I could talk for hours and hours. I have so much more to say about this, but I really don't want this to go over an hour. Jeez. That probably means that I should get out of here before they lock me in here. Okay. Let's start heading towards the front. But that's what I'm trying to say, is that I understand that notion. I get it. And in some ways, in some circumstances, I don't have an issue with it. But when it's something like what's been going on with the Kylie Rodney case, yeah, I do have a problem with it. I do. I'm sorry. I do. I'm not sorry. I'm not apologizing for how I feel about something. And I'm not apologizing or changing my opinion. And if I want to talk about it, I will. Just like if you want to talk about the case, you're going to talk about it. It's not even a case. But if you want to talk about the tragedy, then, I can't stop you. That's your choice. There's nothing I can do about it. And if people want to watch that, that's their decision. Who am I to tell you what you can and can't do? But you can't tell me that I can't say something about it. That doesn't work like that. And I do feel very strongly about it. Especially with that situation. But yeah, that's just kind of where I'm at with it. That is where I'm at. And don't get me started on your bullhorn Bettys. Jesus. I can't. Actually, though, it's a great segue into a conversation I wanted to have with you guys for a while that I mentioned about a month ago about this whole concept of new media versus traditional. Because I'm actually doing a paper, and I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on it. So, yeah, so I'm going to get off of here. And hopefully this will upload. It's quite long. I might have to divide it up. I don't know. But yeah.